What you are watching right now is surveillance footage from a Columbia, South Carolina convenience store. Watch closely. You are going to watch a 14-year-old boy walk in, pick up some water bottles, and then put them back. He did not steal a single thing. He paid. He left. And then a grown man chased that child more than 130 yards down the street and shot him in the back. A jury saw this footage and they still said not guilty. Cyrus Carmack-Belton was 14 years old. He was a student in Columbia, South Carolina, described by the people who loved him as intelligent, humorous, and full of life. He had a mother, Nicole Carmack, who loved him, a father, Troy Belton, who called him my baby. He had his whole life ahead of him. On a May afternoon in 2023, Cyrus walked into a convenience store. He picked up 4 bottles of water, and then he put them back. He paid for what he took. He walked out that door. He never got to go home. Tonight, we are going to break down everything you need to know about this case. What exactly happened on that May afternoon in 2023? Because the store camera captured all of it, and what it shows will make your blood run cold. Why a jury of 12 people, after watching that same footage, came back with a verdict that left this family in tears, and what that says about the system they were supposed to trust, and what Cyrus's parents said the day after through their grief that every single one of us needs to hear. Stay with me, because this story is not over. Let's start from the beginning, because the timeline matters. May 2023, Cyrus Carmack-Belton walks into Rick Chow's Express Mart Shell station on Park Lane Road in Columbia, South Carolina. Chow, 61 years old, has owned this store for years. Now, here's what the camera showed. Cyrus grabbed 4 bottles of water. At some point, he returned them. According to prosecutors, he did not steal anything. Video obtained during the investigation confirmed exactly that. Cyrus was not a thief that day, but Rick Chow believed he was. Chow and his son, Andy Chow, followed Cyrus out of that store, and according to prosecutors, they chased that child more than 130 yards. That is longer than a football field, a 14-year-old boy running for his life from 2 grown men. And at the end of that chase, Rick Chow raised a gun and fired. He shot Cyrus Carmack-Belton in the back. Richland County Coroner Nadia Rutherford confirmed the cause of death. A gunshot wound to the right lower back, and her words were very specific. She said the wound was, quote, consistent with someone who was running away. When this case finally went to trial in late May 2026, 3 years after Cyrus was killed, prosecutors laid out what they believed happened and why it was murder. Lead prosecutor, Solicitor Byron Gibson, stood before the jury and placed one single object on the table in front of them. A bottle of water. He said, Rick Chow believed that water, a few dollars worth of water, was worth more than the life of a 14-year-old child. Now, let's talk about the gun. Because yes, Cyrus did have a 9mm pistol on him. Prosecutors acknowledged that. But here is what they argued. That gun fell to the ground during the chase. Cyrus never pointed it at anyone. Multiple witnesses who were present that day testified they never saw anything in Cyrus's hands. They never saw him point a weapon at anyone. As the prosecutor put it, nobody who testified that Cyrus pointed a gun at Andy Chow had any last name other than Chow. Think about that. The prosecution also made this point. Rick Chow didn't fire at close range in a confrontation. He chased that child over 130 yards, past any reasonable definition of immediate threat, and then he shot him in the back while Cyrus was running away. That is not self-defense. That, prosecutors said, is murder. Now, I'm going to give you the defense's argument, because in order to understand how this verdict happened, you need to understand what the jury was told. Defense attorney Sean Kent stood up in that courtroom and said 6 words that framed his entire case. A father who sees a gun pointed at his son. The defense argued that Andy Chow, Rick's son, was the one being threatened. Andy testified that Cyrus pointed the gun at him, and Rick, according to the defense, fired not out of anger over water, but out of a father's instinct to protect his child. Defense attorney Jack Swerling said afterward that the jury faced 2 extreme and conflicting stories, and that they made the right call given what they were presented. The jury also knew that years before this shooting, Chow had shot a shoplifter and fired at the vehicle of another in separate incidents at that same store. Both of those prior incidents were ruled self-defense at the time. Police had responded to hundreds of calls at that location between 2018 and 2023. Assaults, robberies, larceny, burglary. The defense painted a picture of a store owner in a high-crime area who had been victimized repeatedly and who was pushed too far. But I need you to sit with this for a moment. Even if we accept that Cyrus had a gun, and he did, he was running away when he was shot in the back after a 130-yard chase that the shooter initiated. The jury deliberated for approximately 8 hours. During those deliberations, they sent the judge 4 separate questions, including one asking for clarification on South Carolina's legal definition of malice. That is significant, because malice was a key element that prosecutors had to prove to secure a murder conviction. The jury had only 2 choices: of murder or not guilty. No lesser charge, no manslaughter, no reckless homicide was put before them. It was all or nothing. And the answer was nothing. When the verdict was read in that courtroom, the cries from the Carmack-Belton family could be heard across the gallery. Sobs, wailing. A family watching the system tell them that no one would be held responsible for the death of their 14-year-old son. Rick Chow sat frozen. Then slowly he bowed his head into his hands. Attorney Carl B. Grant, who was not involved in the case but offered legal commentary, explained it this way: a jury's job is not to decide whether a tragedy occurred. Their job is to decide whether the state met its burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and in the eyes of these 12 people, it did not. The day after the verdict, Cyrus's mother, Nicole Carmack, and his father, Troy Belton, sat down for an exclusive interview. And what they said, I need you to hear this directly. Nicole Carmack said she was devastated, that she could not believe the jury came back with not guilty. And then she said this: my son was running away. He was shot in the back. I try to have faith in the justice system, but they have failed Cyrus. They failed my baby. Troy Belton, Cyrus's father, the man who stood in that courtroom and watched every moment of this trial, said this: to me, this is like another setback for young black males, black and brown males everywhere. It's just like you just can't get justice nowhere. It's hard, and you can't see it any other way. The family also released a formal statement, and there's one line in it that I keep coming back to. They wrote, yesterday a jury watched our 14-year-old boy run away from 2 grown men on video. They knew one of them shot him in the back, and they still said no one is to blame. No one is to blame. A child was chased down and shot in the back on camera, and the system looked at all of it and said, no one is to blame. Now, this is important. This is not the end of the road for the Carmack-Belton family. According to family attorney Todd Rutherford, a civil lawsuit against Rick Chow was filed in Richland County before the criminal case concluded. It was put on hold while the trial played out. Now that the criminal case is closed, that civil suit is back on the table. A not guilty verdict in criminal court does not prevent civil liability. O.J. Simpson was acquitted criminally and still lost a civil suit. The standard of proof is lower. Preponderance of evidence, not beyond a reasonable doubt. The family is not done fighting. The family said it plainly. We will not stop. We're taking this fight to civil court, and we will not rest until our son's life is given the dignity this verdict denied him. The community responded immediately. Protesters gathered outside the Columbia area gas station following the acquittal. Cyrus is not being forgotten. His name is not fading. Cyrus Carmack-Belton was 14 years old. He went to a store. He put the water back. He tried to leave. He was shot in the back. His mother said they have failed her baby. His father said, you just can't get justice nowhere. His family said, black families have stood right here too many times, embarrassing their children and being told the law sees nothing. That camera caught everything. The jury saw everything, and they still walked away. I want to ask you something, and I want you to drop your answer in the comments below because I genuinely want to know what you think. If the security footage clearly showed Cyrus returning those bottles, if the coroner confirmed he was shot in the back while running away, what do you believe would have needed to be different for this jury to return a guilty verdict? Was it the law? Was it the lack of a lesser charge? Was it something else entirely? Drop your thoughts. This community deserves to talk about this. As soon as there is any new development in this case, any movement in that civil lawsuit, any community action, anything, you will be the first to know. Make sure you are subscribed and you have that bell turned on because Cyrus's story is not finished, and neither are we.